In this module, you will add a timer or ticker to your simulation and update each object status with each tick of the clock. For example, suppose a customer will stay at station 1 until tick 20. With each tick, you must update the clock and check the customer's status against that value. If the time is less than 20 ticks, the customer stays at the station. On the 20th tick, the customer must be moved to the next station and the statuses of the customer and station updated appropriately. In this movie, we will create a structure of if and for next statements that will allow us to manage the ticker and the actions within it. My sample file is chapter 0302, and you can find it in the chapter 3 folder of the exercise files collection. We won't be doing any work directly with the Sim Setup worksheet, so I'll press Alt F11 to go to the Visual Basic Editor. This code is similar to, but slightly different from the code that we created in chapter 2. But you can see that I have declared a large number of variables, and we will use those throughout this chapter. I'll scroll down to the bottom of the code module, click beneath the Create the Ticker and Internal Constructs Starting Here comment, which is just above end sub at the very bottom of the code, and start adding our control structure. We'll start with a for next loop where we have the ticker. So I'll type for, then L for long ticker, which is the name of a variable that I declared earlier, equal 1 to 85. So we're making an admittedly artificial assumption that we will have at most 85 ticks within this simulation. Enter twice and tab over. Now within the for next loop, we'll start a for each loop for each object in customers. So for each space objc, which again is the variable type that we're using for objects within the customers collection. So for each object C in customers, and then enter twice and tab in again, we will have a couple more levels here. So if objc.station, so the station that a particular customer is in, is not equal to -1, then we'll take some action. But we also need to do another check, and that is whether the customer is idle. So we'll do if objc.isIdle equals 1, then we'll take a specific action. And now we have one more nested if statement, and that will take a look at the station. So that'll be if stations. And in particular, this is the next station that the current customer is interested in moving to. So that would be objc.next station, close parentheses, period, sta is idle equals 0, then. In other words, if the station that the next customer wants to move to is not idle, that is, it is busy, then the customer won't be able to move, so we need to add 1 to their idle time. So I'll press enter twice, tab in one more time, and add a comment indicating that we need to add 1 to the customer idle time if the next station is busy. So let's add 1 to customer idle time if next station is busy. Okay, then I will press enter twice and go back, and now we need to have an else statement. So I'll just type else, and then a colon, and tab in, and we'll add comments for what will happen here. So that would be move customer to next station, set the station's idle property to 0. Next line is also a comment, calculate the customer's processing time, set customer idle to 0. So if the next station is available, the customer's idle gets set to 0, indicating that it is engaged. And finally, we need to set the start time property to the current ticker value. And that indicates that the customer was serviced at a particular station at a particular time. So single quote, set start time property to current ticker value. Okay, that's a lot, but it will help us work with individual customers, getting them to the next station and ensuring that their status is marked as busy instead of idle. We can close out the end if we just created. So there's end if, then move down and backspace over. And now we need to do an else if. And what this else if does is it takes a look at a customer's end time, and if it equals the ticker value, then something will need to happen. So in other words, a customer just ended their stay at a particular station, then something else needs to happen. They need to move to the next station. So we'll do else if space objc.endtime equals L ticker. And again, the ticker variable is the overall clock for the simulation. And the actions that will be taken are here on the next couple of lines. We'll set a comment first. So we'll do set station to idle, set customer to idle, and set the customers. Then I'll move down to the next line, but it's still a comment, so I'll type a single quote, current station to its next station property value. So in other words, the code that we put in this else if segment will set the station to idle, set the customer to idle, and also set the customer's current station to its next station property value. So the customer is not currently being served, the station currently doesn't have a customer, and the customer is presumed to have moved to the next station. So I'll press enter, move back, and we can end if this particular statement, and then backspace, and we're moving out in our organization. Next, we're going to set a station to idle after a customer leaves it. So we'll type else, followed by colon, space stations, LNMBR, STAS, followed by a period, STA is idle, equals 1, and then we'll do an inline comment, sets last station to idle when a customer leaves it. Then enter a couple of times, then an end if to close it out. Now we need to advance to the next object C in customers. So I'll type next, and then an inline comment of object C so we know which for next loop we're dealing with. And finally, we need to close out the ticker for next loop. So I'll type next, and then comment to indicate that it is L ticker, and enter. There's a lot going on here when you start working with a timer or ticker in a simulation. I realize that just putting in the skeleton or outline of the code can be a little bit confusing at times. However, as we fill in the code throughout the rest of the chapter, the structure here will start to make a lot more sense.